It was a lot of fun. I don't go out in the evening very often. You know, I go home, obviously, and wrap up in bed. But special occasion, went to a truthers meeting. These are people who question 9/11. They say it happened, but it was all a bit of a conspiracy. Richard Gage is, I suppose, one of the world's leading truthers, deniers, crazy people. Anyway, he says 9/11 is not what you think it was. And I spoke to him. Here's the interview.
There is a whole lot more to 9/11 than we've been told. In fact, I represent 2,100 architects and engineers who are demanding a real investigation of what happened on 9/11, the destruction of all 3 World Trade Center skyscrapers. World Trade Center 7, a 47-story skyscraper, which drops suddenly straight down uniformly into its own footprint at free fall acceleration, as fast as you could drop a bowling ball off the side of the building. It fails in just under 7 seconds, top to bottom. So we know that's a controlled demolition.
You must have some ideas. Who do you think is involved?
Suspicions.
Go on.
Obviously, a group of operatives that have access to 3 of the most highly secure buildings outside the Pentagon obviously have help from above. We don't know how high this conspiracy goes, how wide.
You're honestly telling me that no journalist knows what happened, or they're too frightened or too intimidated to tell the truth?
Well, there are many journalists who have done their homework, who've looked at the evidence, and who have tried to provide it, and who are not working in the system anymore as a result of those efforts.
Who are they?
Christina.
You know as well as I do that Popular Mechanics has looked at your theory and said it's complete hokum. It's just ridiculous.
That's their job. They were brought in to these editors to replace the existing editors at Popular Mechanics, and then they proceeded to do a flim-flam job.
What was the purpose, the reason? Was it so that then the American government could extend its power and invade other countries?
I don't presume to know what the purpose is. I mean, if you look what happened after 9/11, you can get a few clues.
Some of the people I've spoken to, for example, they say that the day 9/11 happened, all the Jews were told to stay away from work. Is that true too?
I don't know. I haven't researched
you don't know?
that. There's a lot of things I don't know.
Look, I do know. There are lots of things I don't know, but I can assume a bit of a leap here that they're not true. So do you think there's a chance that is true?
I have no idea. I haven't even looked at it.
Oh, so it's possibly true that all the Jews were told not to go to work that day?
Well, I suppose that's possible. I have no idea.
Okay.
What I do know is
the Israeli government was involved in this?
I don't know that either. There are some research.
Was the British government involved in this?
It's possible. I don't have.
Any Freemasons, were they involved in it?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's interesting how they've reformed themselves, these people, because in the past, Jonathan Kay writes about this in his book. There was a lot of talk about Jews involved. They weren't, but there were quite a few people who spoke about Zionism last night. But I'm going to show 2 more clips. All sorts of people spoke to me, some off camera, and they were more aggressive. But here's sort of the best of the worst.
If it is a conspiracy, I think it was a conspiracy. I think it was a group of Islamic fanatics who conspired to do this. But if it's an alternative explanation, who was behind it?
Oh, I don't think we have to answer that.
You must have an idea.
I believe individuals inside our own governments perpetrated these events.
Okay. You must have an idea who will be behind it.
Cheney, Rumsfeld.
Who do you think was behind the conspiracy?
The Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberger Group, with Rockefeller's help and financial backing.
Who is behind the conspiracy? Well, I think it's got a lot to do with a lot of people. I wouldn't name one name.
Who else?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there are people in the, in the CIA.
I would have to say the Rothschilds are definitely involved in some shape or form.
In the FBI, there are all sorts of deep holes.
What about George Soros? Was he involved?
Well, I wouldn't know for sure.
I went to the ad on the Star today, and it had disappeared. Now, they had worked terribly hard just to get one little ad on there.
The liberal Toronto Star is part of the conspiracy too.
You talk about it as a conspiracy. Yeah. I don't know.
There's an ad in the Toronto Star and it disappeared.
I went to the site that they said it was at. It wasn't there. Don't know why.
Wow.
I have to ask you, who do you think was responsible for the controlled demolition of World Trade Center 7?
International jury and the Freemasons.
They actually had it all set up before World Trade?
And the Rothschilds, obviously.
That never came out in the...
Do you think I might be right? Now, there's a bit more coming, because... And I know they're going to say, oh, you're editing and taking it out of context. We have the original tapes, believe me. They went on at great length, but none of this is contradictory to what they actually said. I'd like to see some more. Would you? Okay.
Lies. I mean, what are the other things we should be aware of?
I mean, things that aren't properly covered in the media?
Yeah.
Well, one of them, I think, is the banks.
The banks?
The banks.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a big issue.
ATM machines not working, tellers aren't as attractive as they used to be.
That's true.
Napoleon was a robot.
I should send you.
Hitler was made of cheese.
If you give me your card.
I don't have a card on me.
I had a list of about 10 things which the press did not like to cover properly.
Agreed.
One of the things is actually climate change. They've come on a little bit recently.
Now, you never read about climate change in the media, do you?
Well, there are no scientists in the media.
No.
All the scientists
you are right. When I think about it, I don't think I've ever seen climate change covered in mainstream media.
And it's a shame.
Well, right, anything else?
Humour, not a strong point amongst these people. Now, I am certain that 9/11 was a conspiracy. And the conspiracy is this. A group of Islamic fundamentalist fanatics trained as pilots and then worked for a long time to organize a plot where they would board a number of passenger aircraft, take them over, kill people, and then fly them into the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and other sensitive and iconic American targets. This was a vile and bitter conspiracy, and I'm afraid to say that it was successful. There you go. Pure and simple. But to the weak-minded, the failures, the anti-Semites, the losers, there has to be another explanation. To those convinced that the only reason they are unsuccessful or that the world is not exactly how they want it to be, there has to be another explanation. To those who believe that there is a deep, dark plot involved and that a secret group of people are controlling everything, there has to be another explanation. To those who believe Freemasons, Catholics, gays, Jews, always Jews, and little green men living in Uranus, sorry, couldn't resist, are behind world power, there has to be another explanation, always another explanation. But you know what? Perhaps they're right. Take a look at this.
A new book called The Truth About September 11th claims to present evidence that the destruction of the World Trade Center was not the work of terrorists, but was in fact perpetrated by the U.S. government. With us, the much maligned book's author, William Gerard.
Most of the mainstream media, they're just too afraid to even have me on, so thank you.
Also joining us is Omar Al-Farouk of Al-Qaeda. He's an outspoken critic of what he calls Gerard's 9/11 conspiracy theories.
Yes, Michael, I assure you that is all this book is complete nonsense.
Mr. Gerard, how did you arrive at the conclusions in your book? Where are the facts?
Well, through
here?
scientific examination of ground zero. For example, the melted core. I mean, that was definitely evidence that there were thermite bombs that were used in bringing down those buildings.
I can assure you, we did not use thermite bombs. I did the research myself. It would not have worked. We flew an enormous airplane into a building. Okay, I think it is obvious what caused the building to crumble.
Why are you being so close-minded to this, sir? If more
How
people
would you
just
like
had the
it
courage.
if you spent, 2 months in a mountain cave, sleeping on rocks, planning something really special, only to have someone take the credit away from you? Say, oh no, you don't deserve the credit for it.
Open up their minds.
Now, the conspiracy theory types tend to believe not in one conspiracy theory, but in many, ranging from moon landings that didn't happen to 9/11 to alien abduction to, yes, even Holocaust denial. It's the same seamless garment of paranoia, neurosis, and insanity. As for 9/11, you really have to ask some very basic questions. Why and who? If it was an inside job, who did it and why would they do so? The usual reason put forward is that it was the New World Order type supported by the CIA, the US establishment, Obama, as well as Bush and Israeli mercenaries and the Mossad. This was told to me even last night in great detail. They did this apparently to control oil and to protect Israel. Well, that's total lunacy, of course it is. But just imagine for a moment that it was an inside job. It was an inside job to control oil and protect Israel. Why go after Afghanistan instead of Saudi Arabia or Libya? And why go to so much trouble with planes and buildings and the colossal risks of being discovered? If the plot was revealed, the American establishment would fall and fall forever. Instead, you could just, I don't know, assassinate a senior ambassador, bomb a government building. There were so many risks involved in 9/11, so many opportunities for it all to go wrong, so much that could be revealed. All planned by government, we're told, which is incredibly incompetent at the best of times, you know that. And if it can construct such an elaborate plot, why would it leave gaps and holes that the truthers would then discover? And why was it not all reported? Because media, they say, is controlled by certain people. Oh, come on, which people and which media? There are countless journalists who would jump at the chance of breaking a story like this. As for Iraq, which is frequently mentioned, well, this had nothing to do with 9/11 and was all about Saddam Hussein and weapons of mass destruction. You might believe there weren't any weapons of mass destruction, but that still has nothing to do with 9/11. But as I was told last night, Saddam was a CIA agent, but then he had to get rid of them and they had to get rid of him because the Zionists didn't like him. Those Zionists, I was told over and over again, they're in charge of the banks, and the banks control the world. And look, the fact is that the so-called architectural theories about buildings and the claims about heat and aircraft fuel are bogus, and they're not taken seriously by serious, credible people. Truthers are frightened and small and desperate to be brave and big. It's understandable, but ultimately silly and childish. I mean, whatever will they disbelieve next?
On that fateful day, the day the Empire was attacked, all the crew, staff, and guests, including security personnel and Imperial officials with the exception of one, were killed when the terrorist organization known as the Rebel Alliance blew up the Death Star with a squad of single-man fighters. The terrorists detonated the central core with proton torpedoes, destroying the prominent political target. But could the destruction of the Death Star have been an inside job perpetrated by top-ranking Imperial officials and royalty? What really happened that day? What's the likelihood that a squad of one-man attack ships like the X-Wing could penetrate the defenses of a heavily fortified moon-sized battle station? Even if a ship was somehow able to slip through, the difficulty of torpedoing a tiny ventilation shaft necessary to detonate the core is extremely high. In fact, a decorated and experienced Rebel Alliance fighter pilot, Wedge Antilles, is quoted as saying, "It's impossible."
May the Force be with you, my friends. And if these truthers are believable, then I'm a Wookiee. Or is it an Ewok? I always get those two mixed up.